What do most Fortune 500 executives have in common? After more than 100 episodes recorded with those very executives from companies like Disney, Amazon, Netflix, Cigna, and Google, the answer is clear. They learned lessons in leadership from the fields and courts of their high school and collegiate sports teams. Some of our guests' athletic experience earned them a place in their sports Hall of Fame, like Chick-fil-A Chairman Dan Cathy. Some hung up their cleats after high school, like Delta Airlines CEO Ed Bastian, while others, like Condoleezza Rice, claimed they were terrible in their sport. But no matter their skill level, they have all told me that being a part of a team taught them lessons they still use as leaders today. In partnership with Maxwell Leadership, I'm your host, Don Yeager, here to give you an all-access pass to genuine, authentic, fireside chat-like conversations with today's business icons so that you can create powerful, positive change in your own organization. This is Corporate Competitor Podcast. With me for today's episode is Andrew Duncan, CEO of Infosys Consulting. Infosys helps companies, including Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, transform and innovate with more than 3,000 consultants spread across 19 countries. Andrew's professional journey spans more than 25 years in the consulting realm. Hailing from the United Kingdom, Andrew's upbringing has significantly contributed to his leadership in both the UK and the United States. As testament to his outstanding contributions, Andrew was internationally acclaimed as a leading figure in the consulting field by Consulting Magazine in 2022. Remember to visit corporatecompetitorpodcast.com/149 and download the notes and reflection questions we put together for you.
Your carbon is exactly the same as my carbon. You're a key piece of me and you and us achieving that goal. Humility is, I believe, a part of what leads people to listen. If you're not humble, you're not listening for the most part. Bring humility to the table. You will listen. You'll be more sensitive. You'll be more adaptive. You'll be more flexible. You'll learn more. Yes, you are the leader. That's what your job is. But at the end of the day, we're all made of the same stuff.
Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Don, you're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here today and looking forward to our conversation.
You know, you spent 30 years in consulting, held vice president or C-level positions at 5 different companies, both in the UK and the United States. And today you lead a company that works with some of the biggest brands on the planet, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, looking at all these big brands and their desire to build sustained excellence. What are some of the things you're seeing these days?
Interesting question. As you're aware, I've spent half my professional life in the States and half my professional life in Europe. There's some fundamental differences between the way a company, the big one, operate and act in one continent versus another. In Europe, we like chit chat. We warm things up. We sort of want a preamble before we go into what we really want to talk about. And we can be quite cynical. In America, if you start chit chatting, people think you're BSing and they want you to come straight to the point. While it's one big brand to us on the outside, there's actually quite complicated and there's a lot of innuendo on the inside. Because you walk into these big organizations globally, you've got to understand you're dealing with a European team or an American team or indeed an Antipodean team. Big businesses have bold visions. They want to achieve something. They hold people to account, particularly vendors, and they have scale. Look at our own business. We have the scale, a true global execution. The big guys are big because they think big. Coming in with some sort of rounding error of a proposition is not going to move the needle for them. You need to think big. And if you're thinking big, you're dealing cross-culture. And if you're dealing cross-culture, you have to be sensitive that Google in North America or Google on the West Coast of the States is very different to the Google that sits in London. They may look the same on the outside with the same signage and all the rest, but you get inside and there's different casts, characters, and a very different culture.
You know, that's such a great point. Often we want to treat everything the same because they got the same logo outside, especially in a consulting role. One of the interviews that I read, you talked about the idea that you have to create a culture organizationally as the leader where people have a sense of pride and belief in the strategy. How do you make sure that your team is aware of those things?
It's very important that you give them purpose. They're going to be a team working with you for a reason. They're not just going to do it because you're a great guy. Well, maybe they will. I've got to give them a reason. And I'm a huge believer in giving a team a mission. If you can do that, so you've got several steps there. You've got to articulate what it is you're trying to achieve or what the ambition is. We're going to achieve something together. It's going to be bold. You may not actually believe it's possible when we kick off, but you've got to throw a mission out there and you've got to get them believing just a small piece of it. It doesn't have to be the whole thing, but you've got to give them some belief that, yes, that mission is achievable. And then you've got to show them a path by which they're going to realize that mission. And then you've got to help them in their journey to achieve it. Then hopefully you can build on that and deliver a success. From that success, they'll get a sense of pride, a sense of self-belief, and then they're going, right, what next? What else do you want me to do? And I've seen it time and time again throughout my career. If you get people thinking in the right direction, you get them sensitive to their environment, and they achieve something, even as small as it can be, that belief starts building. And when you get that belief, then you get confidence.
And suddenly momentum starts to build.
Exactly. It's like a snowball.
Yeah.
And it's what I say to my team going into clients. I go, look, you're all consultants. You love talking. Much as you all like to talk, when you're talking, you're not listening. If you're not listening, you're not learning. So you won't understand what context or what platform to put whatever it is you want to say into before you open your mouth. So step one, listen, absorb the environment, look around you, see what's there. Yeah, it's probably some of the strongest advice I give people. And it sounds like quite soft, but dear God, these things are here for a reason. You've got to use them.
For the audience who's just listening, you didn't see him like grab his ears there. That's perfect. Would you argue that that's your greatest responsibility as a leader, to paint pictures for people and then ultimately, as you said, begin to achieve and create some level of momentum?
I'd spin it a different way, Don. I mean, I get the biggest sense of pride and satisfaction out of leading people to do something that they didn't think they could do before they started the journey with you. The journey is a really important part of it. It's not just the outcome. There's a brilliant book written by a guy many years ago, Randy Commissar, called The Monk and the Riddle. The book is all about not just trying to sort of achieve the result, but enjoying the journey from where you are to getting the result. I'm a fisherman. It's where I sort of gain context and I reflect. One of the things about fishing, whether you're catching fish or not, I always tell people just sit down and look at where you are, because most of the places you catch fish in the world are beautiful places. Years ago, I was in the middle of nowhere in Alaska. I think we were fishing for char on this river in the middle of the tundra of Alaska. And I wasn't catching anything. And the guide who was coming up the river, he said, "How are you doing?" I went, "It's not so good." I was getting frustrated. He went, "Andrew, sit down and take in your environment." And Don, I sat down on this rock. I just sat there and thought, and I looked around and I just went, wow. Within about 5 or 10 minutes of not fishing at all, just looking around, I'd seen just streams of fish swimming past my rock, which pissed me off a bit. It was like wildlife fiesta. If all I've done is just focus on catching that fish, I'd have missed so much. Understand the context of where you are, what you're doing, and enjoy the journey as much as getting to the result. When we were building our first consulting business with a whole bunch of colleagues, I just said, look, yes, we will want sort of the big liquidity events and the exit and everything else, but you've got to enjoy the journey there. This is a special time. This is in the early 2000s. We were right in the thick of it. The amount of people who were on that team who've come to us, yeah, you were so right. That was a special time. It really was special. And if you hadn't told us just to take it in a bit, we'd have missed it.
Wow, what a great lesson that is in taking in the moment.
Yep.
Because it also requires you to be present.
Because I play golf. I'm pretty bad at it, but
aren't we all?
It's 2 ways you can play golf. Well, 3 ways. You can play shot by shot, trying to catch the perfect wave and hit a good one every so often. But most of the time, it's not ideal, but it keeps you there because you couldn't hit the really good one, which makes you feel great and wonderful. But when you don't hit the good shot, you can get all frustrated and angry and trying to overanalyze what's going on. You then take a hole-by-hole approach, which is, all right, I'm really making a mess of this hole, and you get more and more angry and worked up, and the hole just gets from bad to worse. And the worst thing you do is carry it over to the next hole. And this took me a while to understand. In a round of golf, it doesn't matter how bad you are on a shot or on a hole. You're playing 18 of these things. Learn what you can and look forward to the next hole. If you can't walk around 18 holes of golf and just enjoy the journey of whacking this white ball around, you shouldn't be playing. You've got to take a step back. If you get too angry, just go do something else. I do see people, particularly junior people, who come into our profession and they have this perception of vision of something, which it isn't. And I have a job. I've got to actually either explain to them that this is a game of golf and you're not a golfer and you're getting too angry and go do something else. Or look, yeah, no, you are a golfer. You're actually can be far better than I am. This is what you should do and what you should look for and how you should look to grow and what you need to do to be able to participate in it at that level.
You know, we had the great golfer Jack Nicklaus on with us a number of episodes ago with his son, Jackie. Jack talked a lot about the difference between good and great is not letting one bad hole become four bad holes.
Exactly.
It's that ability to compartmentalize that one situation and then say, okay, now that's behind. What do we have ahead? It's your exact point right there. I love it. We've talked about fishing and golf. What role did participation in sports play in your upbringing?
It was pretty big. I mean, I was very fortunate. I went to a thing we call a public school, and it was boarding school. Schools like that, and I'd say any school for that matter, it's up to you what you want to make of that environment. Now, for me, I was in a school where you had to play rugby.
Mm.
Everybody played rugby for 3 months a year. And you know what? It brought us all together, and it was a great leveler. We were all carbon units. Some people were better at the game than others, but at the end of the day, the whole school played rugby, all 650 of us. There are some things you have to do because that's just the rules. You have to do it. You can either just do it, get through it, and get to the end of the season, a couple more years of that, and I'm done. Or you take a monk in the riddle approach and you go, all right, well, I may not like this very much, but what am I going to get out of it? And how do I experience the best journey I can? I wasn't very good at rugby at all. I loved every minute of it, though. Everybody was around the same sort of skill set, and we just turned it into a way to have fun, as opposed to sort of being too obsessed on the competition. In the other two terms, you had a pick of what you could do, and I ended up in cross-country running, athletics and stuff. I actually was quite good at that, and so I actually enjoyed sort of leading a team and actually ended up as captain of the club and bringing this team with me to actually really get the head down and run. And I don't care how hard it hurts or how much it hurts, just run because we're going for results. But at the same time, enjoy where we're going. We're getting out of the school. We're going to see other places. And then in the summer, I play golf. Pure escapism from the rigor of a school. I mean, the school can only go so far. And then we get out to a golf club and it's a totally free environment. But it teaches some independence. It also teaches you leadership, but really importantly, self-leadership. So it is up to the individual. They'll steer you and guide you a bit, but you've got to take responsibility for you. What journey do you want to go on and how much enjoyment are you going to get out of that journey? No, that's leadership. You've got to decide what you want to be in life and what you want to do and achieve and what ambition you have, and then mold your journey accordingly. The main requirement, though, is make sure you enjoy whatever journey it is you want to get on. Because if you don't, then you're on the wrong journey.
I had the opportunity a few years ago to go spend time with the All Blacks in New Zealand, maybe the pinnacle of that sport. And I didn't have an appreciation of it prior very much, but I certainly gained a lot then. Is there a story or a lesson you learned from rugby that maybe became foundational to some of the way you would learn to become a leader?
Huge. When you're micro-sized, your skills are, there's a white ball over there, I need to go get the white ball. It's basically mass crowds of young people chasing this white ball over the field. This is like Brownian motion. It's somewhat random. Someone kicks it, drops it, throws it, and the whole crowd just moves over to wherever the ball is. You can see the same in Little League soccer.
Right, exactly.
As you mature as a person and get a bit of age under you, then you actually begin to realize that, hang on, sort of the scrum is there for a reason and the line of quarters is there for a reason. If the scrum does what the scrum does and the quarters do what the quarters do, then we actually may get into playing this game called rugby a bit closer to what it was intended. Even within a scrum, you can't just be a person in the scrum. You've got to be an integral part of the scrum. Each person in that scrum of 8 people have very specific roles. They're not just part of a scrum, but you have to be a team.
Right.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, you've got to become a team. Scrum's got to do their job. You've got to do your job in the scrum. And if the scrum does their job, the quarters get the ball, and we actually have some fluidity to the game, and hopefully you can win it. But if you just go on there as an individual, it's going to be a hard afternoon, and you're not going to enjoy the journey very much.
So having that experience, and then having the experience you've had over this amazing career leading organizations, one question we love to ask on this podcast is, I think one of the most overused words in the corporate lexicon is the word teams. My team and I went to do this. And the truth is, most of these teams are really just a group of individuals who happen to have the same business card.
Yeah.
If you're trying to counsel one of our listeners who's trying to take a group of individuals and form them into a team, what are the elements that you would say they need to build upon to create that team?
It's an ongoing learning. Teams typically exhibit some key traits. Teams have a knowledge of each other. And I'm not talking about just the role, but they tend to know each other to a level personally. Actually, part of why I'm in the States next week is working with my team, taking it to another level of how do we get to be a better team? How do we learn about each other more and more and more? What do you know about your other team member over there? What makes me happy? What makes me sad? How do I tick? What motivates me? motivates and makes other people take on the team, and sharing that knowledge. So people know that if you do something to Jeff over here, it's going to aggravate him. He's not going to be overly happy about it. If you talk to Susan in this manner, Susan's going to like that and be a lot more responsive, and therefore you'll get more out of her as a team member. Don't be afraid to trust people. You've got to allow people to start on a plane which would want you to trust them. And you can go up or down. They can exhibit behavior which makes you trust them more, or they can exhibit behavior which makes you trust them less. But you can't go in with this starter of a 10 of, I'm not going to trust anybody. Maybe I'm being too generous there, but it's looked after me through my life. Don't be afraid to trust someone, and then learn whether you can trust them more or less. And then based on that level of trust, delegate. Because as a boss, you can't do it all. You can't be the guy programming all night long every day of the week. You've got to be able to delegate out. And if you lead by example and you trust and you delegate, then you can actually achieve a lot more. Never ask someone in the team to do something you're not prepared to do yourself. Years ago, I was working at a client in Memphis, Tennessee. I'll never forget it. I said, look, I need you to do this program overnight and make sure that it works and everything so we can actually run this other larger system the next day. I'm not sure. I think that's a lot of work. It's going to be more than overnight, and it's pretty complicated. I said, look, you know what? I'll do it myself. They all went home. I sat back. It took me another hour or so. The next morning it came in and I said, so there it is. This very complicated thing, this thing which is going to take weeks, there it is. He said, well, does it work? I said, of course it works. I already tested it before you got in. The rest of the team suddenly went, oh my God, this guy really asks us to do something. He probably knows how to do it. It's just he hasn't got that many arms and legs to get it all done. But if push comes to shove, he'll probably do it. I remember another one where we're implementing a system in a warehouse. And we needed to move a whole bunch of stuff from one side of the warehouse to the other to test stuff. And I asked one of the warehousemen, I said, could you move the stuff basically from over there to over here? He said, well, it's tough and I haven't got anybody driving a pallet jack and I need someone. And I said, well, I've got a license, I'll do it. And he looked at me and said, no, you're a consultant. I said, no, I can do that. I'm qualified. And so I hopped on the pallet jack, started moving the stuff. Never had an issue moving stuff around the warehouse for the rest of the implementation.
Wow.
So being reasonably plugged into the team, you can actually make sure the team is behaving as a scrum as opposed to a collective of 8 people chasing around the ball with a bit of body mass to them. Teams don't happen overnight. You have to be patient. They come over time. They really start coming together when you have a challenge or you're dealing with adversity or you're enjoying success. And they look back on the situation and go, wow, didn't think we could get through that, but we have, and here we are. And then you get the, right, what else do you want us to do? Seeing people at the end of it look back and go, wow, I had no idea I could do that. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
That's it. You have to have a knowledge of each other. I love that question. What do you know about that person over there?
100%.
Never ask someone to do something you wouldn't do. Don't be afraid to trust people. Start at a place where you begin with trust and then let them earn more or maybe a little bit less. And based upon what you learn there, use that trust to delegate and multiply out your effectiveness. I can take each one of those and build a better team as a result. Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
You serve on the Forbes Technology Council, which is a very peer-to-peer opportunity to learn from those who are successful as you are. You have this great line, be confident but humble. Every leader needs conviction in their own abilities and ideas, but humility not only inspires others to follow your lead, but forces you to consider better solutions before making decisions. What do you walk into one of those opportunities looking for, and what lessons have you taken?
You're a CEO of a billion-dollar business. You think you're reasonably cool and you get invited to all sorts of things. You get invited to speak on podcasts and TV interviews and stuff. And you get invited to this thing called the Forbes Technology Council. You're going, it's another notch on the belt and I'm there. You come in and you're sort of Mr. Big Impact or Mrs. Big Impact, and you get there and you realize very quickly that there's an awful lot of very smart people on that. I mean, a lot of very smart people on that who are a lot smarter than you about a lot more stuff than you know. And if you sit there and listen, you go, well, I'm surrounded by some very, very smart people. Forget the recognition. It's just being in the same place as some of these people is awesome.
Right.
I'd say even in my current role, I took over from someone who'd retired and stepped in with this big, bold ambition. People are looking at me, though, I've got 5 heads and he's a crazy guy from London. But at the end of the day, I mean, again, it's getting to stop believing on that small little piece. You do that by humility. Look, here's the vision. It's big, it's bold, it's fairly scary, but we're all in this together. I suppose my neck may be on the line more than others as we go down this journey to achieve this mission. But at the end of the day, we're all made of the same stuff. We're all carbon units. Your carbon is exactly the same as my carbon. So I've got to do it all with you. You're a key piece of me and you and us achieving that goal. In my business, which is predominantly an Indian business, humility is even more important. That's true on an international level. That humility is, I believe, a part of what leads people to listen. If you're not humble, you're not listening for the most part. Bring humility to the table. You will listen. You'll be more sensitive. You'll be more adaptive. You'll be more flexible. You'll learn more. Yes, you are the leader. That's what your job is. But as I lead, I'm very aware of who else is in the room that I want to listen to and verify certain facts or points with. But I'm also not afraid to admit I do make mistakes. I've still got things to learn. I may make the wrong decision. People look at me and go, well, you're always sort of tweaking things and adjust. I go, yeah, I am, because I made the wrong decision. We've got to move. We can't admire how bad we were. We've got to do something about it. It's not validation, it's input. You're all here for a reason. You've all got smart ideas, smart thinking. Tell us about it. And if we need to sort of course correct or adjust or whatever, that's fine. And I'm not going to take it personally. I made a decision probably 4 or 5 months ago around organization. I catch up with all my directs about once a week. One of the guys said, Andrew, I'm not convinced that was the right decision. Well, why is that? And he led through the reasoning. Well, you know what? Got your point. And I checked it out with a couple more of my one-on-ones. And they went, yeah, we may need to do something about it. What do you think? I'm open. As leaders, you're allowed to come up with problems or where things have gone wrong. But you're not allowed to just do that. You've got to come up with a solution at the same time. Have that discussion. Open ears, open minds, listening to everybody else in the room because they're made of the same stuff. And then coming up to something, not necessarily by consensus, but it's pulling on all the threads of intelligence that you have available at the time to hopefully make a better decision than you made last time. And on that one, I'll probably have to sort of eat humble pie and tell them that I made a bad decision and we're going to course correct here in the not too distant future.
What's interesting, many of us who have been around a lot of consultants are seen as that person that has to walk in with the answers. You better be the smartest person in the room. That's what we're paying you all that darn money for. And I'm hearing you say the reverse. I'm hearing you say that the best are humble, come in with both ears open, are willing to listen, learn, and maybe even adapt what might have been a strategy or an idea they had walking in. That seems both refreshing, but also antithetical to this idea of hiring the genius consultant.
It's a very fair question. There are certain circumstances where clients do call you and they go, we're going to hire you and your team because we've heard you're the best at delivering this system or this type of work, this analysis. And that is very much the case. And if you agree that, yes, that's what you're going to bring to the table, and day one you go, tell me about your business. What do you know? They're going to look at you and go, well, hang on a minute. You're meant to know everything that I've just hired you to do. So in that context, they're hiring you for a capability, a skill, an ability that they want to see demonstration of minute one. Not month one, minute one. They want you to show up and be counted. But there are other situations where the client, particularly in these large transformation type projects or situations where there isn't an obvious answer. The client may not know what they actually want up front. And a big part of our role is to tease out the answer, co-create the answer, ideally then help them deliver the answer. And in order to help them, you have to work with them to try and figure out what the answer is. And if you're working with a client that's paying you to bring expertise and capabilities, you have to partner with them, but also you have to listen to them and you have to be humble. Because if you're coming in as sort of the know-all guy and then you trip, it's going to be a pretty hard fall. But if you can come in with humility and honesty and work with them and partner with them to actually trying to find what is the best answer for them and how to deliver it, game changer.
I love it. You know, obviously humility is a cultural standard within the organization. Tell me, how do you interview for humility?
Cool. Well, you get the obvious signs of lack of it. I did this, I did that. So you're looking for sort of the we. You're looking for the ability to illustrate humility through a story in terms of being able to talk about circumstances that reflect on not just taking the hill, but the journey to get there. People who talk about the hill and just the hill, and that's all there is to it, are probably less humble than the people who go, well, I started here and we got to the hill and this is what happened on the way. People who are more reflective about what happened on the way, I would suspect a better reflection of increased humility than others.
Do they talk about the hill or do they talk about the journey to the hill? I like it.
Exactly.
So most of us who love sports, if you're watching an event or if you're participating, you can see, you can feel momentum shifting at times. But it's just as true in business. Sometimes there's a spark, a moment that occurs that just continues to drive something forward. Have you ever had a moment where an event or a choice or a decision, maybe with you or with one of your clients, has shifted the momentum in their business?
100%. I mean, momentum is very, very real indeed. It's probably what keeps me up most of the time compared to anything else is you get some momentum. And I'm always asking, all right, sort of, we've got it, it's good, and we're making progress. What could derail that momentum? What could threaten us continuing to have that momentum? And this is where I use my team religiously. What could go wrong? What are the things which are going to impede progress? What are things which would happen, which would have to make us think, whoa, we need to have a course correction here or whatever? Momentum is good, but you cannot take it for granted. You have to keep feeding it. Keep your eyes and ears open to momentum actually being lost. People lose momentum all the time. Maybe not all of it at once, but you can see the signs of global economy. A year ago, 18 months ago, we're all sort of out of COVID. Everything's going crazy. Tech stocks through the roof. Everything's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now look at us. That's a fairly dramatic loss of momentum. As a business person, you have to balance what you see as a potential loss of momentum. And if you seize on it too much and go, oh my word, the whole sky's about to fall on me, you're definitely going to lose it because you're going to demotivate everybody around you. Observe a loss of momentum without demotivating the team. It is a balancing act, one that keeps me up at night. Not to recognize that you're losing momentum is as bad as sort of having none at all, because you could come crashing down quickly. Balance the optimism and the pessimism, but also bring a degree of pragmatism to the situation when you make the tough decision. We've all heard about this thing, artificial intelligence, this thing called ChatGPT. I will guarantee you, Don, there'll be a change of momentum on various fronts related to that particular technology. Maybe people out there going, no, it's that technical crowd, they're getting all excited about something and it'll go away, it's a fad. It was not going away. There were people I remember back in the late 90s who were talking about this thing called the internet, and yeah, it's fine. No one's going to sort of basically hand over a credit card to some guy you haven't met on the end of a computer. Like, whoa, yes. Pay attention.
Right.
You could also get too excited about ChatGPT and sort of try and embrace it. It's not fully formed yet, but you got to recognize it's there. When you can basically ask your computer to write you a 2,000-word essay about architecture in Middle England and get it within 2 minutes, you can do that today.
Yeah, no, that is really fascinating. And you're right. In fact, in our own little company, we're doing a Chat GPT seminar internally just so that we can all think as content developers.
Yep.
I've spent 30 years in a journalism career asking really great coaches, athletes, leaders, if there's one habit that they've built into their daily routines that they believe gave them an advantage over others, a habit that makes a difference in what has allowed them to be maybe a little more successful than others, what would that habit be? I've collected those answers for decades now, written a book about it even. I'd love to ask you, is there a habit in your daily routine? Is there something that you believe makes a difference for you?
Absolutely. Whether I've had a bad day or a good day, I do it every day. And that is I reflect, I appreciate the moment and the context of what I'm doing that day. And I always look at how I can enjoy the journey of the day better and reflect on where I am in the journey. There will be things through the day which could frustrate you immensely. There'll be things which could make you extremely happy. Reflect on the moment, appreciate it, and enjoy the part of the journey that you're on. It's the most basic thing economically to just go from A to B. I'm at A and I want to go to B. And so you go to your boss or your company or your board, in my case, I want to go from A to B. And they go, no. What do you mean, no? It's just blatantly obvious. We need to go to B. And they go, no. You can get frustrated and go, well, what on earth's going on? What have I done? And get all wound up and, well, why did they say no? Maybe they want to go to C before they go to B. Could it be D? So maybe their journey they want you to go on is A, C, D, B versus just A to B. Instead of just getting defensive or reacting to a decision, ask yourself, why did they make that decision? A lot of the time I find you just go, you know what, they want you to go on a different journey. Now, they may not actually even realize that they want you to go on a different journey, but they're sending you a signal they want you on a different journey. And you may still get to B at the end of the day, but just your path there may be different. There is a feature of good, successful firms out there. If you look at the entrepreneurial firms, the ones that succeed are the ones that set that vision in the future, what they want to be. And they think they may understand how they're going to get there. But the ones that succeed are the ones that have a consistent vision and are prepared to vary the path based on circumstance. The ones that fail are normally the ones that say at the beginning, this is the path, this is the only path, and this is the path I'm going to go on. And then when an ambient thing happens around it and they get disturbed, they don't know how to still realize their vision. The journey can vary. It doesn't have to be the same from one day to the next. Focus on the vision. How you get there is the journey. Enjoy it.
Focus on the vision. Be willing to vary on the path.
100%. If you can do that, everything comes into perspective.
It's sitting down on the rock and looking at the fish.
Exactly right.
I love it. Andrew, how can our guests get to know a little bit more about you? How can they follow you? What's the best strategy for that?
Probably go to the Bahamas, track down a bonefish flat and look for a Brit to not catch you. But no, seriously, I'd say LinkedIn. I actually, unlike quite a lot of people, I actually do look at my LinkedIn. I'm interested to see what my network and others are doing out there. That's probably the easiest thing. And I do have a team behind me who does prompt me from time to time. Did you see that comment? Did you see that comment?
Andrew, thank you so much today for being a corporate competitor with us.
Don, really enjoyed it. And thank you for your time as well. It was fun.
For those of you who have enjoyed our podcast every week for the last 150 of them, I am so grateful and thankful for being with us consistently. We wanted to let you know that our cadence is going to change over the next few months. Our good fortune is that our longtime producer, Savannah Gallagher, is having a baby. And as a result, she will be taking some time off. So starting with this episode, we're going to publish a podcast every other week between now and the end of the year. This will allow us to record extra content for you so we can continue to add value and help you grow as a corporate competitor. So now let's jump in to our 3 points from today's podcast. You know, as Andrew signed off, I actually shared with him that I always give my 3 best takeaways to you from what I've listened to. But finding 3 out of this is going to be hard because there were so many nuggets, so many great pieces of gold. First off, I was really taken by his story about fishing and about being encouraged just to sit down, look at where you are. Sometimes it's just that matter of appreciation, seeing the environment that you are blessed enough to be in that allows you to enjoy the journey and also to be present in the journey. Super powerful. Secondly, I loved his entire discussion around the importance of humility. He just oozes humility. His discussion about carbon being fundamental. We're all made of the same things. It doesn't matter what title you have. We all bring the same things to the equation. What an important piece of learning that is to remind ourselves, stay humble. And then finally, I loved his answer to our team's question. We ask it often. Have a knowledge about each other. Ask that question. What do you know about that person over there? Dysfunctional teams don't know each other. Don't be afraid to trust people. Start with trust as a metric and then raise that bar, lower it based upon what you see once you open with trust. Never ask someone to do something you wouldn't do. I'll do it myself. Powerful. What a great way to set a bar that everyone else can then know they can live up to. And then based on what you see, delegate. That's how you extend out your network. That's how you make yourself a greater leader. Andrew was a gift today. I will hold on to that gift for some time. I'd love to hear from you. Tell me if you've got a favorite episode and maybe something that you might have learned from one of them. Connect with me to up-level your company culture. Go to maxwellleadership.com/Don. I'd love to stay in touch, and I'd love to continue to be partner with you on your journey to be a better corporate competitor. If you could share one habit, one thing you've done consistently that allowed you to separate yourself from your competitors, what would it be? In my 30-year career, 2,500 of the greatest athletes, coaches, and leaders answered that question for me.
This is Don Yeager, who did that that article I was telling you about.
Don, Dave Sims with Coach K. How you doing?
Hey, Don. How you doing, my man? Great, sir.
What they gave to me is what I'm giving to you in my online course, Journey to Greatness. Through engaging storytelling and on-demand videos, you will learn the 16 habits that will jumpstart your personal growth. I will instruct you on how to apply these winning characteristics to your life through custom workbook exercises. We are slashing the price for our podcast listeners. Lifetime access to Journey to Greatness is normally $399. But for our podcast listeners, it will be $49 with the code podcast at checkout. Click the banner on corporatecompetitorpodcast.com to enroll.